Welcome to the Mindset Architect podcast, where it's all about creating the life you want, the business you want, and making a real difference. Join us in unlocking the code to true success. And now your host, Tony Caliendo, Master Coach with reTHINK Coaching.
Welcome to the Mindset Architect Podcast, episode number 49. I'm Tony Caliendo, Master Coach here at reTHINK Coaching, and I'm really excited to be here with you today. As always, I just want to thank you for investing and spending time with me. Time truly is our greatest asset, and the fact that you're willing to spend that with me means a tremendous amount to me. So I always want to honor that, and I want to acknowledge it, because anytime we give our time to something, the intention is to get a return on investment of our time, to either learn or to have something good happen. And so that is my commitment to you on every episode of the Mindset Architect, is to shed some light on what I see out in my coaching world with you, to help you, whether it's a business or a life goal that you might have that you're working towards. So I mentioned this on the last podcast. We're kind of sitting at a weird time of the year, meaning we're more than halfway through the year. And for those of us who are in sales, we're almost working on Q4, quarter four, just because of the lead lag time to get to a sale. What you do today usually impacts you 30, 60, 90 days from now. So some of us may actually be working in our Q4. And so we're at a precarious time of year where there's some reflection going on. There's some focus on goal versus actual. There's or actual versus goal. There's a lot of things going through our heads right now. And what I am noticing a bit more than I would care to see out there is that many of the entrepreneurs that I have the privilege of coaching are in a space where their focus is strictly on the next sale, the next thing. That's turned into their goal, almost to, I don't want to say obsession, but that's their singular focus. Now, you would naturally think, well, what's wrong with that? And there's really nothing wrong with it. But what I will say is a lot of times it's just not sexy enough or motivating enough to push us through to the next level. So again, here we are kind of end of the year, and we may have a deficit that we're working towards closing that gap and hitting the goal that we set. And if we're strictly focused on the goal, we're really at risk of not hitting it. And I'm going to tell you why. It is really, really important that you know your goal. It's really important that you know your numbers. It's really important that you know what needs to be done to get you to goal. But it can't be the only thing that excites you or motivates you, because again, it's just not the sexiest thing. To wake up in the morning thinking, I got to get one more transaction, I got to get one more deal, I've got to make one more sale, is sometimes not compelling enough to move you to take action. And this is where we've heard this before. We've heard a lot of people talk about it. This is where it is critically important for you to have a why or a reason. Okay. And that sometimes can be difficult for different reasons. But honestly, I want us to really sit with this for a moment. A lot of people call it know your big why. Like, why am I doing this? And I always say, if you don't know your big why, then you don't know why you're doing what you're doing. You're just kind of going through the motions. So it is important for us to have clarity on that. So let's park on that for a minute, because the intention of having a big why, or the reason or the motivation, is exactly that. There are going to be days and times and moments where you're not going to feel like taking action. You know, I may wake up today and look at what's on my calendar and realize that today's just not a day that I want to make sales calls. I just don't feel like it. And if I'm really honest with myself, here it is, Wednesday. I haven't felt like it in a little while. It's probably been a week since I have felt like it. But I know I need to get another deal. And that is putting some pressure on me. And that pressure, though, is not pressure to perform. That pressure is a pressure of scarcity. That pressure is a pressure of not abundance, right? Of that scarcity mindset or lack. And so if I don't have a bigger reason to get into action, a lot of times I won't, and I'll stay stuck. And that's how we end up missing goal. So with my one-on-one clients that we're coaching right now at this time of year, for those that are maybe a little bit behind goal or are at goal but are running out of steam, which is a symptom of falling out of state with your big why if you're running out of steam or running out of energy. So with a lot of those clients, we're having to revisit why. We're having to revisit what is it about this goal that is going to have an impact on you and give you reason to get into action even when you don't feel like it. So let's just say you're that person that hasn't done your sales calls, your lead generation, whatever you want to call it, your personal work on yourself. You just haven't done it in a little while and you're feeling burned out or you're a little bit out of oomph or energy. And you're looking at the task of doing this activity and it just isn't lighting the fire. But if we take a step back and say, hey, last December or last year when we set this goal, we tied to it a reason why you wanted to do it. We tied to it what would be the impact of you making this goal. For some people, it might be to be debt-free. For some people, it might have been to buy investment properties. For some people, it could have been opening up their first investment account or their first retirement account. For some people, it could have been taking their family on a dream vacation where it was first-class tickets, going to a foreign country, spending a substantial amount of time there and doing it upright, doing it all very high-end, high luxury. So the compulsion or the big why or your reason for why you do what you do can be a variety of things. And it should be the thing that when I wake up and I look at my day and I say, I don't feel like making my sales calls today, that I think about that trip to Europe. I think about that trip to Italy. I think about the 10 days we're going to spend there, the 20 days we're going to spend there, and know that if I don't take action, that is at risk. It should be a thing that motivates me to the point where like, I don't care if I feel like doing it or not. I'm going to Italy. I'm taking my family. We're doing this, or I'm opening up that investment account. I am so committed to it that even if I'm not in the space of feeling like it, I'm going to do whatever work I need to do on my mind. I'm going to manage my mind and my thoughts to get me in the space of taking action. And so some of this can tie back to the thought flow model, which we've talked about. If you're not familiar with it, go back to episode number 1 and learn about it. But at the end of the day, you need something that lights you up, that you would make you want to take action. Another sale is typically not it. I hate to say it, it's not. It's a great thing, but it's usually not compelling enough to make me want to get into action. So setting a bigger why, if you will, is really important to plug into when you're feeling off. Even when you're feeling great, it's a good thing to plug into because you show up a little bit differently in how you perform. It's not just to get to the next unit, it's to get to this bigger goal. And I like to think of a big why bigger than just me. All right. So, I like to think about it as the impact it's going to have, kind of that ripple effect. Like if I threw a stone in a river and you see that ripple effect, that's how I personally like to look at my big why, is the impact it's going to have not only on me, but on others, my friends, my family, my spouse. It's going to have an impact on the charities that I like to support throughout the year. I like to look at the ripple effect of the bigger impact and it not just about me. And so I think that is really important when you're looking at that why. Now, I may refer to it as the big why, or I may refer to it as a series of little whys, but it really is just identifying what that is or what those are. So some of us really struggle with this. And I know personally, when I first was introduced to this, I really did struggle because it felt somewhat selfish and it felt like maybe it was doing things for the wrong reason, right? I was, my first entrepreneur job was selling houses. I was a realtor. And when I set my big why up, it was like, well, that's so far off of the original goal I had when I started doing this, was to help people buy and sell, right? To help buyers find their dream house, get them into a home that maybe they didn't think they could find or afford, helping sellers sell so they can move on to the next chapter. And I felt a little like being inauthentic by studying this why if I'm going to go on a cruise. But ultimately, it's a reward for doing the work. And there's nothing wrong with picking something that would reward you or make you feel really good about what you're doing and keep you in the space of doing it over and over and over. Because I don't care if you're a realtor, I don't care if you sell widgets and gadgets, I don't care what you do. You do reach a level of repetitious boredom And if you don't have something that excites you, it is really, really hard to stay in momentum. So I'm just going to ask you to spend some time thinking about a big why, or maybe it's a series of little whys. I'm going to do a vacation with my family. I'm going to pay off that debt. I'm going to start a SEP, or I'm going to get in with my Fidelity guy and look at different options for investment accounts. It could be a series of whys that lead up to something bigger. So it could be a series. It could be more than just one thing. And it just needs to be impactful, and it needs to be measurable. All right. So for instance, if I were to say I part of my why is to open an investment account, that is very vague. It would count if I opened an investment account with $1 or with $1,000,000. So just stating this why and not having it be measurable is dangerous, because it doesn't allow the brain some peace on where it's headed. It doesn't give it its really end goal. So whatever your why is, make it measurable. Do not just set a vague why. We're going to go on an incredible vacation. What's incredible? What is it? Where is it? How are you going to get there? Where are you going to stay when you get there? What kind of dinners are you going to go to? What activities are you going to do? Really get it crystal clear and make it measurable. Don't be vague. Really, really work on it. It's tangible, measurable. I also recommend that you make it public. And this freaks some people out, and I just want to sit here for a moment. Would you make your why public, especially if you make it public with the people that it's going to impact? There can be a feeling of tremendous responsibility. Like, oh my God, I said this, and now if I fail, everybody's going to know. They're going to know I didn't do it. I'm going to let them down. And that's okay to run through that for a moment. But the reality is that's incredibly powerful that you stated what you're going to do publicly, because it does hold you to another level of accountability. You just have to get beyond the belief or the thought that, everybody wants to look good and be right. We have to be okay with, if something happened totally unexpected and we didn't get there, we don't look like a failure, and you continue to work towards it. But you do want it to be public. I think that is really, really, really important. For my clients that have kids, we'll bring the kids into it. Hey, when mom or dad or aunt or uncle or cousin, whatever it is, does this is what we're going to get to do. That's really, really high level of accountability. And it just is one more layer in you saying that goal out loud, which records differently on your brain than if you hit it. Like if I just hit it and I didn't tell them about it, and let's just say it was a first time trip to Disney and I didn't tell who was going. Well, as I'm marching towards goal, if I'm not making goal, it's maybe not as big of a deal to just disappoint myself. But if I knew I was disappointing 5 other people, especially if there were littles involved, I would feel more compelled to perform. So I do believe your why should be something you're willing to share publicly with the people that are going to be impacted by it. I opened a scholarship in my parents' name at the university they both went to. And there is somebody out there who is counting on that money showing up for 4 years while they're in college. So it's a very public thing, and I know that I need to perform to fulfill that every year. So I do believe that making it public is important. Now, here's what I'm going to say. Don't make it ego, okay? A big why around ego is destined to fail, because ego is a little harder to measure around, and it's very internally focused. So let me give you an example. I coach some really amazing agents. For the most part, the people that I coach are performing at a very high level. Yet occasionally I'll get somebody that's performing and wanting to take their business to the next level. And when I ask them what their big why is, they might say to feel valid in the industry, to feel like I'm really an agent. Okay. That's really hard to measure. Like, what criteria are you going to use to measure those things? And it's a little ego driven. Now, that can be a byproduct of it, but I wouldn't make that be my why. I just wouldn't. So I always measure them in terms of, is this ego or is this really a measurable, tangible thing that I'm after? And am I willing to make it public? And am I willing to do that with whoever I am impacting it by? So your why, couple things: no ego, tangible, measurable, public, impact. That's what I want you to think about when you're setting up your why or your multiple whys to keep yourself motivated. Now, you can tie this in with a couple other tools and resources. You might tie it in with the vision board. So you might have your vision board of the trip to Disney. You might have your vision board of the Charles Schwab account or whoever you're investing with in there with a check, and actually take a check and write it out to the company for the amount that you plan on, opening that account with. Just create the visual of what you're after. So it's really important because, hey, team, as a human being, I have days where I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do what I plan to do for today. It's just not speaking to me. And I will turn and look at what I have put on my desire board. And I'm like, okay, that's really more important than me feeling like this. I'll get to work on the model of what's the thought that's creating this feeling that's keeping me from taking action. I clean that up and then I get into action because the bigger reason is more important to me than I just don't feel like it. So you can combine a couple tools. I think a vision board, a thought board, whatever you want to call it, is a really nice thing to have. And then I also think when you're having those moments, looking at it and using the thought flow model is kind of the secret sauce to getting you back into action. Because don't forget, energy precedes you in everything you do. If I'm not feeling like it, but I look at the board and there's a trip to Disney and I just pick up the phone to get the task over with, that energy is going to transfer through and I'm most likely not going to get great results. If I clean up my thoughts around it and my feelings, then my actions are going to be more impactful and I have a better chance at getting results. So, look at this as a combination of some of the tools that I've introduced to you, and you can go back and listen to previous podcasts, but probably the most important one is the thought flow model. And that was episode number 1. First couple episodes, we talk a bit about that. So work on combining those few tools, and I promise you it makes a difference. So the other thing, and I'm going to be very transparent, we have been taught as people that at some point you stop playing make-believe, or you stop pretending, right? And we did it as kids, right? We've all seen it, right? Who do you want to be when you grow up? You play a doctor, a nurse, a mom, a dad, a fireman, whatever it is, that you want to be. And during that time, you don't give one care about how you're going to do it, right? You just are it. You're in the moment. You are that person. But at some point, that's taken away from us because as adults, I think we want to try to protect kids to get real. And I think that's really unfortunate. And because of that, sometimes it's hard to allow yourself to dream about what you want your why to be. And so this may not come easily to you in the beginning, and that's okay. And it's going to take some work for some people. For others, it's like bing, bang, boom. They know exactly what it is. And for some people, it is a struggle. And so if you find yourself in this place of struggling, I really do just want to take a moment and tell you to give yourself permission to dream, to not worry about how. Don't get caught up, but just, let's just say you were really, really stuck and you were looking at your goal. And let's say your goal was to earn $500,000 this year. And if I gave you a check for $500,000, what would you do with it? What difference would it make? What would you do? Who would be impacted by it? And it can start to unlock some of what you would do, because now you've got the money, or your brain thinks you have the money, and it allows you to think a little bit clearer than having all these other thoughts going through your head. So it may take you a minute, and it's really important that you spend the time doing this, because taking action without knowing what your why is, you're going to get to a point you wonder, why am I doing this? And having this as a tool is a tremendous, tremendous resource for you. So let yourself really have at it and dream and think big. If you're struggling, just do the game of, okay, just was handed a check for $500,000. What am I going to do? What would I do differently than I'm doing right now? That may help unlock it. The other thing that I'm going to ask for you to do once you get all of this figured out. So I'm just going to go back to the Disney trip to make it easy. So let's just say that the big why is to earn the money this year in 2024 to take the family on a big trip to Disney. And that's first class tickets. It's staying at a really great hotel. It's eating out and not worrying about money. Like that is so not a worry. In fact, you probably prepaid for everything before you went. So really knowing that that's the goal and that's the why, here's what I would recommend doing. We don't have to, but it's helpful to trick the brain into thinking it has already happened. So there is a difference when I sit in the space of saying, oh, in December, I'm going to do this. When I do this, I'm going to do this, versus saying it's December 15th. I just booked our last excursion in Disney, and it's to have a private tour of whatever it is, right? And I am so, the feelings I have right now are just amazing to be able to do this for my kids and my family. I'm feeling so much joy. You're speaking as if it's already happened, not it's going to happen. That really does a cool thing with the brain. It jostles it a little bit, and the brain can't tell the difference between real and make believe. And it starts feeling a sense of relief that the task is done. So if I were a trip, let's just say a trip was one of the things that I would have, I would immediately get maybe with family or whoever, and I would plan the trip out. I would look at what days we want to go, what hotel options there are, pick a hotel, look at the park passes, look at the different parks, look at the different restaurants around. I would really bring this thing to life and not just say, we're going to Disney. And that would be my vision that I would cast, the vision board, right? And then I may do daily journaling or weekly do a visit to my journal to where I future pace things. Hey, it's November 1st. And I'm so thrilled. I booked our tickets today. I clicked the button. I paid for us all to be in first class, or I paid for us all to be in Comfort Plus on Delta. That's my preferred airline. You know, I booked all of our tickets. All of our seats are together. I've got the limo or the car service picking us up to take us to the airport. I feel so incredibly proud of myself that I did that today. And then we may be like, the next week, you may put yourself in a place of, okay, I just bought the 5 Disney passes that I needed to buy for this park on this day, this park on this day. I pushed the button. I paid for it. And I feel blessed that I'm able to do this. The feeling that I have is truly, truly amazing. Live into the feels of it all. You can do that with a lot. I mean, you can do that with buying the tickets. Oh, I just booked dinner reservations at this really awesome restaurant that the kids are going to love. I just booked a sitter to come take care of the kids, and my spouse and I are going to go to this nice 5-star restaurant. Whatever it is, just sit with the things on the journey to it and position yourself as if it has already happened. Magic, magic, magic happens. But this all starts with your ability to have a big why or a series of little whys. Without it, you might experience some burnout. Without it, you might experience a lack of motivation. Without it, you're risking hitting your goal. The sex appeal of selling another house, making another sale wears off pretty quickly. Where working towards the bigger why is really exciting. And especially if you do the things, right? No ego, tangible, measurable, public, and who it impacts. When you do that, it just puts a different charge around what you're doing. So if you've ever been asked what your big why is and you're like, oh my gosh, why are they asking me that? This is why we're asking it. Without it, it's one of the risk factors of you not hitting goal. Without it, it can seem rather repetitious boredom setting in with the tasks that you need to do to get to goal. Without it, your brain does not know what the heck to do. It's just focused on the one thing, the next closing, the next sale. It's not thinking big. It's not opening it up to all of the possibilities. So, my friends, I'm going to ask that you sit for a moment and really make this a priority. If you don't have it, do it. It's a game changer. It can make things super exciting and rewarding. So this is why a why is important. I'll say it again. If you don't know the big reason, you're going to question why you're doing what you do. And so give yourself the gift of allowing yourself to dream big. Give yourself the gift of allowing yourself to see an impact you can make on others. Give yourself the gift of bringing those people in terms of sharing publicly what your goal is. And I promise you your energy, around taking action will change. So as always, if you have questions or you're really struggling with this, it's okay. It's okay. Some people really do have a struggle with this. If that's you, just reach out to me. I've got a link I can send to you for a free 1-hour call. We can have a private consultation. We can work through some things that are preventing you from allowing yourself to dream big. It happens. Do not get frustrated. But here's what I'm going to say. Do not do this. If you get stuck or you have a question, you've got us. Reach out to me directly, Tony@rethinkcoaching.com. You can go to my Instagram, Tony M. Caliendo, or you can go to the Mindset Architect Podcast Instagram page. You can find me a million different ways, but do not get stuck and do not give up on this. It's a game changer. So we're here to help you out, my friends. I love knowing what my why is. It's exciting. And the more you do this and the more you're willing to put yourself out there, the bigger they get. And it is amazing when you allow yourself to dream and to know that you can do whatever it is you set your mind to. So I appreciate y'all being here. Go make it a great week, and we'll see you next week. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, you must come check out the Mindset Architect Group Coaching Program. It's our monthly program where we explore the power of your mindset, help you identify what you truly want in business and life, and then help you reach those goals. Come check us out at rethinkcoaching.com/group-program. That's rethinkcoaching.com/group-program. We'll see you there.